Hi, this is Becky Ivory, and I am tacking this video onto the front of our webinar recording because if you were there live, you know that we ran into some technical difficulties and my internet went out in the middle of our webinar. So I have re-recorded that section so that there is no material lost for those who want to go back and watch it later. So when you see those transitions between the live and the not so live, you'll understand what happened. I look forward to talking with you soon. Thanks. All right, everyone, it's 12 o'clock, so let's get started. I do like to start things right on time. And so let's make sure that we can all see me. Hopefully you can all see me. I've been telling the people who have joined from online, there is a little thought bubble in your control panel. And that thought bubble has the opportunity for you to send me messages while we're talking, a little chat that goes on. And so if you have questions or concerns while we're going, you can send me a little message and I will try to just glance over there every once in a while and see what's going on with that and take care of those problems. Some people, if you have an issue with your sound, probably the fastest way to take care of that is to dial in by phone and you'll have the sound that way. So don't fret. One way or another, we'll make sure that you get the information today. So my name is Becky Ivory. Obviously, you know that already if you're dialed in here today. And I'm really excited to be here. I know people say that all the time. You have to, right? If you're doing a webinar, it would sound stupid if you don't say you're excited to be there. But the truth is, I am more excited about this than I ever have been, anything that I've been doing with my work for a long time. And that's because I'm going to be sharing with you, at the end, I'm going to tell you quickly about a program that I've created that I have desperately wished existed for the last 30, 40 years of my life. And it didn't, so now I've created it so that hopefully it can exist for yours. But I'm excited today because I decided to make this webinar about 3 principles that really have made a difference in my life and in my ending the war with food in my own life. I honestly have to tell you, I didn't think that would ever happen for me. I struggled with food my entire life. It literally sucked the life out of me. And I thought I would die that way. And that was one of my biggest fears, is that I would get through my entire life and never figure this out. And so I'm excited to share with you. A lot of you are my friends. A lot of you are people I've never met before and will be my friends. But I really want to help people to avoid some of the years of pain that I've had to deal with. So welcome. Let me give you a quick agenda. We're going to go 1 hour straight. I love being on time. I know you have places to be. In that 1 hour, we're going to first start by talking about what does it feel like to be in a war with food? How do you know you're in a war with food? You may already know that answer. If you're on this call, you probably do, or you know somebody who does. But we're going to cover that really briefly anyway. And then what does it look like to be at peace with food? If you're like I was, I could only see it in other people. I couldn't really imagine it in myself. So we'll quickly go over that. And then I'm going to share these 3 principles with you that have made a tremendous difference in my life. And if we never talk to each other again, I promise you that those 3 principles are going to be something you can take with you and use immediately and apply into the areas of your life and find greater peace. So I'm excited about that. At the very end, I'm going to introduce to you this new program called From Food to Faith that I've put together, and honestly, it just gives me chills talking about it, and that we're actually launching it right now because this is something that I've dreamed of for a long time. I can't believe I'm getting teary. That's just dumb. All right. So, and I have a special offer for all of you on the webinar that can join this program at an incredible deal right now, and I'll tell you about that at the very end. And then if you have any questions, I'll be open to taking those and answering questions after the hour, and if you don't, totally fine. So let's start by talking about what does it look like to be in a war with food. Not everybody is in a war with food, and you can't tell by looking at someone if they're in a war with food. I promise you, you cannot tell. It doesn't matter what size they are, whether they are large or thin. You can't tell by looking at them if that's something that they struggle with. Now, if you're in a war with food, chances are that a lot of your eating is done in secret, right? I was the queen. I can tell you ways to hide wrappers you would never imagine, right? We eat in the car. We eat when our kids go to bed. We eat when our husband's out of town. We eat any chance we get where we feel like we won't be judged and we don't have to think about what we're doing. So eating in secret is a big issue with that. Food is on your mind 24/7. I can't tell you how crazy this made me, like crazy. Even if I felt like I was eating well, you know, if I was in a good patch, it still controlled my mind 24/7. I was counting calories or points or fat grams. I was having to worry about, okay, well, I'm going to so-and-so's house for dinner and I don't know what's going to be in the food they have, and what if they have this, and I better bring something I can eat, and what, oh, my husband wants to surprise and take me to a restaurant, but there's nothing there I can eat, right? It was on your mind constantly. And if I was in a bad place, then I'm either fantasizing about what I want to get and feeling guilty about what I shouldn't get or what I did get and shouldn't have eaten. It's absolutely a nightmare, and it's on your mind 24/7. And because of that, I missed out on a lot of my life. It's sad for me to think about that. I'm 50 years old now, and there are experiences in my life that people will constantly say, do you remember when we did this, or we were in this class and such happened? And I'll say, you know what? I have zero recollection of that. And I don't think I have Alzheimer's. What I think is that my mind was so preoccupied with food and with the self-destructive thoughts that I had going on, I missed a lot of my life. And that's sad to me. But I'm so grateful that I don't have to do that anymore. Body image, right? Hating yourself, right? I hated not only my body, I hated myself. I would put myself down constantly, feeling like I was stupid or inept or worthless, or people would be better off without me. And if you're in a war with food, then chances are that you believe that if you can just get your body to a certain size, if you could just get some self-control, then you would like yourself. And I'm here to tell you that I hated myself at every size. I used to be a beauty pageant queen, and I've also been 127 pounds overweight, and I was just as miserable at both of those weights, right? This is not about your body. It's not about food. Food is simply a symptom, and we'll talk about that some more. If you think that there are good foods and bad foods, if you feel like you're a good person when you're eating a salad and a bad person when you're eating a cookie, you may be stuck in a war with food, right? So what does it look like to be at peace with food? This is amazing, right? Now, life isn't all black or white. I wish I could tell you that I am 100% of the time perfectly at peace with food, right? Old beliefs always sneak in and try to take over our thoughts again. But when you experience this peace with food, it's addictive, right? When you start thinking, oh my gosh, I can be free of this. This is amazing, and it happens little by little and more the more you practice these things. So to be at peace with food, my favorite thing about being at peace with food is forgetting about food. My husband has always been a natural eater, which is kind of disgusting, really. I mean, let's be honest about it. Now, I was really jealous of him because food did not run his life in any way, shape, or form, and he would come home from work sometimes and say, oh, I'm starving. I forgot to eat all day. And I would think, are you crazy? Like, how do you forget to eat? I've never forgotten to eat a day in my life. I'm not sure I've forgotten to eat a meal in my life. But now that I'm at peace with food, I forget to eat often until my stomach is saying, oh my gosh, Becky, stop what you're doing and go get something to eat. And that is a huge relief, because that means all those between times, I'm free to live my life without thinking about food. That is cool, okay? Another thing is you can enjoy your food. I used to feel so guilty about everything I ate. I didn't even enjoy it. And when I was binging, you don't taste 90% or more of what you put in your body. It's not about the taste even at that point. It's about shutting down feelings or emotions. It's about numbing ourselves. But when you are free and you have that piece of food, you actually taste it. You learn to eat mindfully. You recognize the joy in it, right? There's joy in eating again. There's variety when you're at peace with food, right? I can't tell you how many times I tried to go sugar-free, and I'd be paranoid about, well, does this ketchup have any sugar in it? And if I go to a friend's house, is there, it just drove me nuts, honestly. And variety, you don't have to worry about what's going to be on the table or at the restaurant. You just know that you can be moderate with anything, anywhere. And I didn't believe I'd ever get to that point. That takes away the fear, right? There's no fear about what's going to be served for dinner or what's going on, because you just know you can be moderate and make choices that are going to make you happy no matter where you are or the circumstance. There's no shame, right? No constantly telling yourself what a loser you are, tying your worth to the size or the shape of your body. That's an incredible gift. You're not afraid of scales anymore. Okay, scales have run our life for so long. Think about, when was the first scale even invented and thrown in a person's bathroom? It wasn't that long ago, people. It wasn't that long ago. What did people do before that? They just, their lives went to pot? No. Scales were not meant to ruin our life, nor are we meant to be afraid of them. I know groups that tell you, if you get on the scale, your life's going to fall apart. It's just feedback. Scales give feedback. If I weigh a watermelon on a scale, it's not evil. So if I know the size of my body, that's not evil. The problem comes in the way that we interpret it up here and in here, right, in our hearts and minds. One of the great blessings of being at peace with food is having energy to work towards your other goals. Like I said before, honestly, so much of my heart and mind was taken up in this quest to be thin, this quest to have worth. And now that I have that peace, I have tons of energy to go out after all these goals that I've had my whole life. And actually creating this program was one of those goals that I wanted to do. And to summarize that, what I would say is having peace with food, the greatest blessing of that is that you can have peace now. Not when you're a certain size, not when you can fit into a certain piece of clothing, but now. And then that peace is going to help you end your war with food. It's going to help you get the health that you need. It's going to help you accomplish your goals. But peace has to come first, not last. And we're going to talk more about that. So I want to show you, if you are on the computer, you're going to see my little visual aid here. If you're not on the computer, what I've got in front of me is a pendulum. I purchased this pendulum recently online. And I love this pendulum because it's a great visual about what the war with food is like and what peace with food is like. So if I take this pendulum and I decide to move it so that it's about 45 degrees to one side, what's going to happen when I let go? It's going to swing 45 degrees to the other side, right? However far I swing it, it's going to go. What if I take it and I say, okay, I'm going to move it 90 degrees. Oops, I'm going to move it 90 degrees from level, right? Here we go, or from straight up and down. And if I let go, how far will it go to the other side? 90 degrees to the other side, right? Without fail. So this is like dieting and binging. When I do an extreme diet, I promise you that the binging will be just as extreme on the other side. The more extreme the diet, the more extreme the binging. You may be able to stay with it for 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months. I know people who have gone a year and a half being extremely strict with themselves and thinking this is the answer. But the truth is, over time, they'll tell you that when they finally cave in, because the answer wasn't about food, the answer is about emotional, spiritual stuff. And when the spiritual stuff catches up to you and you start binging, I promise it will be just as bad the other direction, if not worse. In fact, studies show that we usually put on 10% more weight after we've dieted than before. And I believe that. I gained weight with every diet I did. Like I said, I dieted my way up 127 pounds. No kidding. Now, let's take a look at this right now. There's no pressure being put on this pendulum and what's happening to it. It's just sitting in the middle, right? It's just sitting there. That's the only place that a pendulum can be at rest, is sitting in the middle, right? It's same as with us. We're not going to ever be at rest doing extremes, not extreme dieting, not extreme eating, but somewhere in the middle, right? If I give it just a teeny tiny little push, to me, this represents what peace with food looks like. Over time, I get a little hungry, I eat a little food. I get a little hungry a little later, I eat a little food. And my energy is not tied up in the extremes of going back and forth. That's what peace with food looks like. So think about the pendulum when you're trying to think about, war and peace with food. I think you'll have a pretty good idea of why I've learned that we have to avoid the extremes. Okay? All right, so I asked you 3 questions. I sent you some videos. If you just signed up recently, you may not have gotten all these questions because there were some emails that went out the last few weeks. But the first question that I asked you was, how do you think the world is treating you? I asked you this question because it has to do with the principle of attitude. And that was the first principle that really woke me up as to what I was doing wrong. So it happened because I finally hired a coach. Her name was Melanie. And Melanie was a no-nonsense woman. I love her to this day because she knows how to call it like it is. And we were actually working on the 12 steps, right? 12 steps as applied to eating. And she asked me to take a look at my past and the situations in my past that were really difficult for me or that were problems. And she wanted me to look at them and determine what sort of attitudes and emotions that I had had at that time that may have contributed to those issues. And one of the things she asked me was to take a look at whether I had felt like a victim in any of those circumstances. Okay? Now, as you learn a little bit more about me, you'll learn that I had a lot of situations going on growing up. For instance, my parents were divorced when I was 8. Now, I'm not alone. A ton of people end up with divorced parents. But for some reason, in my kid's mind, that messed me up really badly. I believed that if your own father could leave you, if he could move out and not want to be with you, that must mean that you were trash. And I truly believed that about myself. I thought maybe I had messed up or wasn't good enough. Now, that wasn't anybody else's fault. I don't blame anybody for that now, because the truth is that divorce was probably a great thing in my family and worked out just fine. And my father stayed nearby and wanted to be a part of our lives. And I have a mother who's an angel. And it actually informed me how I wanted to create my own marriage and the type of marriage that I wanted, the type of family that I wanted. So it actually turned out to be a blessing in my life. But I couldn't say that for a long time because that was really difficult for me. Later on, because of the insecurities I had developed as a kid, I was a prime target and became a victim of childhood sexual abuse by a teacher for several years. And that was, devastating, and I felt very much out of control in my life. And those are just a couple of examples of, if I could go back to my childhood and answer this question, how is the world treating you? I would have told you it was treating me like crap, right? That it was not fair, that the things in my life were not my fault, and that I felt like a complete victim in my life. But when Melanie asked me this question, when she was coaching me, believe it or not, I looked back at those situations and I said, I don't think I've ever felt like a victim. And if she had been drinking something, it would have come out her nose right at that moment, because she was trying to stifle a laugh and said, all right, Becky, let's go back and look again. And as we looked back at my past situations, she was able to point out to me how badly I did feel like a victim and felt like, what, my life wouldn't be so hard if it weren't for my parents' divorce. My life wouldn't be so hard if the people in my life would be more supportive. I'd be able to stop eating if so-and-so would stop criticizing me about it, or if people would be more understanding, it wouldn't be so hard. And I was blaming everyone and everything for not only my eating, but anything that was not going right in my life. And Melanie was able to help me see that I had to take 100% responsibility for my own life, right? Nobody was putting food in my mouth. Nobody was controlling my thoughts, right? Even if I was conditioned to believe something and think something, I'm an adult. I can choose if I want to accept or reject those thoughts. And as I started taking responsibility for my own beliefs, thoughts, and actions, I started finding some glimmers of peace that I didn't know existed. And the flip side of that coin, by the way, is I had to learn to stop taking responsibility for other people's lives. Now, I hate to admit that I'm a control freak, but you know what? I was a control freak big time. I was so anxious for my family to be happy and for everything to go perfectly that I wanted to control everybody and everything to do it perfectly. And I imagine that was pretty annoying to live with, don't you think? Probably. And it was also causing me a lot of anxiety, because guess what? No matter how hard I try, I cannot control anybody else but myself. So I had to learn to start controlling myself and stop trying to control others. And that was the first major step where I started to experience moments of peace, and where it started to become much, much easier to have peace with food and make better decisions with food. So that's number one, was the attitude, and recognizing that, the world hasn't been so bad to you. Even all those things that, this is kind of a side note I didn't plan to tell you about, but I've done a lot of work in the Utah legislation to try to protect children from child sexual abuse because of the situation I've been in. And I recently was asked to be a keynote speaker at a meeting, and they were talking about that and wanted me to tell about my experiences. And what I told them was, I'm actually grateful that I went through that experience of being sexually abused. And you should have seen their faces drop, because how can you be thankful for that? But the truth is, because I went through that experience, which is so common, right? 1 in 5 kids and 1 in 4 girls will be sexually abused by the time they're 18. If I hadn't gone through that experience, I would not have been able to teach my kids how to protect themselves from that experience. And I would do anything for my kids. If I had to go through that to protect them, and now my little grandbaby, I would do it. So I actually wouldn't go back and change that. So when you start recognizing, you know what, the world's been good to me, everything's turned out for my good, and that helps you look at things very differently as you move forward. All right, question number 2. The next email that I sent you said, stop asking, how long is this going to take? And start asking, how far can I go? This was powerful for me. And it actually goes along with another quote. Let me tell you a story of where I discovered this. I'm a certified John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer. And I was at one of the trainings in Florida. And Paul Martinelli, who is the president of John Maxwell's company, was speaking. And he was talking about going after your goals and reaching for the things that you really want to do. And that was a quote that he said. He said, stop asking, how long is this going to take? And that's the first part of it. And I'm telling you, that hit me like a lightning bolt. Because as somebody who's been obsessed with her weight her entire life, that's the question you ask all the time. How long is this going to take, right? All right, well, if I can lose 1.5 pounds every week for the next, then I can be at my goal weight by my birthday or whatever. You're obsessed with it all the time. And he said, look, if you want something, stop asking how long is it going to take. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take. What matters is that you get there. Ask yourself, how far can I go? Start dreaming about where do you want to be and how are you going to get there, right? Now, in conjunction with that, later on in the day, John Maxwell was speaking to us, and he pointed out into the audience, and I swear he was pointing right at me, and he said, stop running from and start running to. Let me say that one more time because it's powerful. He said, stop running from and start running to. What he was talking about is that when we run from things, when we're afraid all the time, people, he gave the example actually of when people get divorced and they're running from problems. He says you shouldn't get a divorce when you're running from a problem. You should stand and face and fix those problems. And then if you still feel like that's the best thing for both of you, fine. But you shouldn't be running from it. You should be running to a better life, running to your goals. That was the example he gave. For me, it got me thinking, I have spent my entire life running from. I've been running from feeling like a loser, running from being fat, running from the belief that I had no worth. And when he asked, what are you running to? I honestly didn't know. I was at this place where my children had just finished growing up. The last one was on her way out to college. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. My favorite job in the world had been raising my kids. I would do that all over again if I could because I adored that job. But now I didn't know what my purpose was. So I went up to my hotel room. I had traveled by myself that year, and I had hours to myself to journal and write. And I took these 2 questions, right? How far can I go? And what do I want to run to very seriously? Now, my private coaching clients, and actually the people who will be in the From Food to Faith program, I walk them through a couple of questions right at the beginning that are so powerful. And you can do this for yourself. Ask yourself, what relationship do I want to have with food 20 years from now? 20 years. The reason I choose 20 years as the number is because you can do a lot of stuff short term, right? You can bite the bullet and wipe out every gram of sugar in your diet for a short term, right? Maybe even months, and some people maybe even years. But when you think about doing something for 20 years, we rarely stick with anything for that long unless it is really enhancing our lives, unless it has a benefit that is worth it, right? Unless it brings greater peace. So think about that. What relationship do you want with food 20 years from now? Maybe even write that down. Well, I'll tell you what my answer was to that question. I did not want to be weighing and measuring and counting every calorie, fat gram, or point for the next 20 years. To me, that sounded exhausting. Honestly, I was sick of doing it already. I didn't want to do it for the next 2 days, let alone the next 20 years, right? I wanted to wake up 20 years from now in the morning and get ready and only think about food when I got hungry. And then I wanted to not think about it again. I wanted to never care about it anytime I didn't have to care about it. I wanted to enjoy every single bite I ate. I wanted to have food be my fuel and for flavor. I didn't want it to be an emotional drug. I didn't want it to be the glue that was holding my life together. In 20 years, I wanted to know that I could trust myself, that I could be in any situation and handle it, that it would not be controlling me, and that I wouldn't even give it a second thought. You know, that's what I wanted with food in 20 years from now. Now, the second part of that question is, what do you want your life to be like in 20 years from now? Not just the food part, but your entire life. What do you want to be doing during the day? Do you want to work? If so, what do you want to do for work? How fulfilling do you want it to be? What kind of clients do you want? How much do you want to be paid? How many days a week do you want to work? What about your physical health? Do you want to sit in a chair? Do you want to be active? Do you want to? For me, I'll tell you my answers. I have a little grandbaby who's only 6 months old right now. And in 20 years from now, she's going to be 20 years old. And I do not want to be the grandma that is sitting in a chair listening to the hike that she went on last weekend. What I want to be is the grandma who went on the hike with her. I wanted to be involved in my grandkids' lives. I want to travel and see their little school plays. I want to be there when they get married and when they have experiences. And in order to do that, I have to have a certain amount of help. I went through that on my career. It's part of why I chose to continue being a John Maxwell coach, mentor, and trainer. It's why I created some of these programs, because my passion is what I want to do the rest of my life. I want to help people. And so those are the two questions you need to ask yourself, because those are the things you're going to run to. You're going to run to that style of eating. You're going to run to that relationship with food. You're going to run to that life that you want to create for yourself. Because right now, the world of dieting, it's a matter of running from, right? We want to start running to. All right, now the third question that I asked you was, what would it be like if you were to stop being controlled by fear? Now, maybe I'm alone in this, but I kind of think I'm not. Fear is something I have dealt with my entire life. Now, I know anxiety, they say it can be inherited. And I don't know if it was inherited in our family by DNA or by behavior or what it was, but it runs in our family pretty strong. And I think I got 3 helpings of it, because as long as I can remember from the time I was a little kid, I was extremely anxious. And I used food as a drug to calm those fears, to calm, really not calm, but distract from the anxiousness and fear that I always felt. And that stayed with me as an adult, and that's something I've struggled with forever. So let me share a story with you that has really helped me with this in a way that no anxiety drug was able to do, no amount of therapy was able to do. This was amazing. Even though I love therapy, let me put that little side caveat in there. Okay, I finished the training with John Maxwell. I went home very excited about my list I have made of all the things I'm going to run to. I was excited about my goals for work. I was excited about my goals for my health and for my relationships, and was just excited. And so I had a list of things I was going to start doing immediately. Well, as I started doing those things, what happened? You betcha. It was the terror barrier, just like, boop, popped up between me and what I wanted, right? What I wanted was over here, and here came this barrier that threatened to stop me. Now, this barrier of fear, I say that it's made up of two voices, right? Two voices in my head. I call them my inner Judge Judy and my inner mini-me. Okay, now let me explain. The inner Judge Judy voice is the one that always puts me on trial and always finds me guilty. Always, okay? That's the voice that says, who do you think you are? What makes you think you can do that? Don't you remember the last 2,000 times that you failed? Nobody wants to do this with you. Nobody thinks you can do this. What makes you think that you're all that? Right? That's the Judge Judy voice. Now, this other voice, and that was the voice that says, oh, wait a minute, I don't know if you should do that, because what if people don't like you? What if you fail? What if you get abandoned again? What if everybody knows that you're a loser? It was that voice that was constantly trying to pull me back out of fear and say, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, we're going to fail. And both of those voices, the Judge Judy voice and the mini-me voice, both of those are trying to protect me from pain, right? I felt certain amounts of pain in my life that are unbearable. And those two voices are saying, let's make sure that never happens again. But the problem is they're not very helpful. And what might have been protecting me as a kid is not so helpful now. So one day after getting back from that training, I had massive anxiety. It felt like I was going to have a panic attack. And so I was praying, and I was asking Heavenly Father, saying, please, I need help. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know what I want to do, but these fears are overwhelming. And as I was praying, I had this very interesting vision that I'll share with you of a childhood experience that I had over and over again. I had a friend around the corner from us whose name was Shireen. Now, Shireen lived 2 doors down. Her grandmother's house was between hers and mine on the corner. And when I would play at Shireen's house, it would often be dark when it was time to go home. So when it was time to leave, I'd say goodbye, and I'd close the door, and I'd start walking home like a very mature young lady, right? But within just a couple of seconds, my brain would start to conjure up like this boogeyman behind me. And I was convinced there must be someone scary right behind me. And my heart started fluttering harder, and my feet started getting faster, and I started breathing heavier, and pretty soon I was sprinting across her yard, through her grandmother's backyard, around the corner, into my house. I mean, I remember bounding up the stairs, opening the door and slamming it behind me, and not feeling safe until I got in my house with the door shut, and I was sure the boogeyman could not get me anymore. That must have happened a ton of times. I can't even count how many times. But what was really behind me? Nothing, not a thing. Made up fears, right? So as I'm praying, I have this vision of running from that fear. And all of a sudden I heard this voice in my mind say, stop running from. Well, at that moment that that voice said that to me, I, in my mind, was halfway across Shireen's grandmother's yard, being chased by these imaginary fears. And I stopped in my mind, and I turned around and faced these fears. And I just asked them, what do you want? What do you want? Why are you hounding me? And one by one, each one of them told me one of my fears and let me look at it straight in the eye. I remember one of them was, how are you going to teach other people how to do these principles? You're not perfect at them. How can you be the person who stands up and says, this is how you should do it? And I was able to look at that and say, you know what? You're right. I'm not perfect at them. I don't know anybody who's perfect at them. I just happen to have a real strong belief that they're true, and I have the ability to teach those and to help other people, and I keep working on it myself. And then I asked what the next fear was, and that fear came up, and I was able to think through that. and respond. And I did that with each fear until finally there was nothing left for them to say. When they were out of things to say, I turned around in my mind's eye, and there in front of me was this big, beautiful, bright horizon of all the things that I had planned that I wanted to run to in my life. And I was ready to keep running. Now those fears stayed behind me, right? They like to tag along, but now I see them more as ill-advised friends, right? Well-meaning friends who are trying to protect me from being hurt, but really don't have the whole picture. I don't have to listen to their advice. I can listen to it. I don't have to take it, right? And so that's how I learned not to let my fears manage me. I face them. I explore if there's any truth to what they're telling me, and then I move on and I make my choices. So let me tell you about the history of From Food to Faith, right? This is the first time that it's been turned into a program, but that title actually came to me many, many years ago, over 20 years ago when we lived in Las Vegas. I was listening to Zig Ziglar speak, and he was talking about that everybody should write a book. And I thought to myself, well, what book would I write? And since, of course, I was in the throes of my battle with food, I thought, I want to overcome this someday and help other people overcome it. So what would that book title look like? And I felt like this title just popped into my mind that said, From Food to Faith. Well, that was kind of a revelation to me because I wasn't really sure how to apply faith to solving this problem with food. So I started researching, like, what does God want us to do with this? How did God expect people to take care of their bodies? Diets haven't been around forever. Bathroom scales haven't been around forever. BMIs and body fat percentages weren't known forever. How does he expect us to take care of our bodies? So I started researching it. And you know what I found out? I don't see any place where he says we need to severely restrict the types of foods that we eat. I see a lot of places where he talks about moderation and not being gluttonous. My observations of our bodies that he created tells us that he's given us hunger to tell us when it's time to eat, and he's given fullness to tell us when it's time to stop. He even programmed our bodies to know what kinds of food it needs. I have a doctor who said he had a woman come in who was craving licking the concrete. She was literally licking concrete. And when he tested her, found out that she was severely lacking in a mineral. And when he gave her that mineral, she stopped licking the concrete. Our bodies know what they're missing. And if we learn to listen to our bodies, we can trust them. Heavenly Father wants us to trust our bodies and to trust ourselves. And he wants us to love and respect ourselves and our bodies. And you know what? I was doing anything but that. So I kept trying to think about this from food to faith. And then 8 years ago, I started a blog called From Food to Faith that was just having people follow me on my journey to try to discover how to overcome this. And I really have loved keeping that blog and the people that follow me there. And then I became a trained and certified coach, speaker, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. And as I began putting these principles together and going through these experiences I've shared with you, I knew what I had to do. I knew that it was time to create this into a program that could help countless people. So I have a question for you. What is this war costing you? What is it costing you? You know, financially, I did the math one time. I was trying to really be honest with myself. And I figured if I spent $5 on each binge, and that's easy to do, right? That's half the cost of just getting a meal at a local drive-thru. But if I spent just $5 on a binge and I did that 3 times a week, in about 27 years of our marriage, I probably spent about $30,000. Now, I think that's on the low end of the estimate, but that's at least what I spent. So financially, it has a cost. Emotionally, it has a massive cost. And to me, that was the worst cost, was the low self-esteem, the constant feeling like I wasn't worth the trouble I was causing. And then there's a spiritual price to be paid. We like to think that we can separate our spiritual lives and our physical lives, but the truth is they affect one another. And when we abuse ourselves physically, it affects us spiritually. And so with my coaching clients, what I started learning is that most of them were telling me that their war with food was their number one issue that they wanted to solve. And as I knew personally, that's something I'm so passionate about and something I care so deeply about that's why I decided something has to be done. There is no program out there that combines the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual, as well as the group coaching and the support aspect. That's what we need. If we could have done it on our own, we would have done it a long time ago. If it was a math problem, a calorie problem, calories in, calories out, we would all be our healthy weight, right? Because we get that. We're not dumb. We can do math. But it's not a math problem, and it's not about the food. And so, is this your number one challenge? If it isn't, you need to work on your number one challenge, whatever that is. But if this is your number one challenge that you need to deal with, then what is stopping you from taking action? Is it fear? Because it was for me. I was so afraid of failure and afraid that it was just one more thing that I would fail at. Is it embarrassment? Is it guilt or shame, right? When I think that the fact that I spent at least, $30,000, my guess is I probably spent more than $40,000, $50,000, in all honesty. That's embarrassing, and I feel guilty about that, or I felt guilty about that. So from food to faith, let's quickly tell you what it is. I want to honor your time today, even though we had some mishaps, and please forgive me for that. And I want to make up for that, make that up to you. So from food to faith, it combines all of those things. It combines the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, as well as group coaching and group support. And it is not a religious thing, but you are going to be welcome to talk about and share how your faith helps you in these things, whatever your faith is. I'm a Christian. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I don't care if you have a religion or what your religion is, but you're welcome to talk about how your faith helps you in this process and how that can give you perspective. And so here's how the program works, okay? It's online, face-to-face meetings. Now, in all my online face-to-face meetings, I have never had the internet give out like it just did now. So I don't know if that's a sign or if that just means I need to switch my companies. But it's an online face-to-face meeting. So you're in a group where you can see everyone's face, not just mine. You'll see everybody else's, and we can talk to each other and have a meeting just as if we were in the same room. Every week, I will come with a lesson that directly applies to what we're talking about, and I'm going to give that lesson at least twice a week. Right now, we're going to start with Monday mornings at 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time and Thursday evenings at 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. And as we get more people in the group, I will add more times, right? And you can join either of those, both of those, but I encourage you to come on at least once a week so that you have that close group support and we can really discuss through the issues that you're dealing with. Each meeting will last 1 hour, and we'll spend the first part of each meeting discussing what's called food for thought. So at the end of the meeting every week, I will give you a little worksheet that you can use to help you apply the principles we talk about that week, some questions you can journal about and ask yourself, some things you may want to try in your behavior and your thoughts that week. And as you come back, we'll spend the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it takes, to really discuss that as a group, what our experiences were, what we learned from that, and how we can move forward, followed by about a 20-minute lesson where we'll talk about an aspect of overcoming this war with food. And then the rest of the time will be spent having group discussion about that and about the challenges that we're having and coaching you through those specific challenges you're having, because it's one thing to have the principle in your head, it's another to apply it every day. And then at the end, I'll give you the new food for thought for the coming week so that we're all on the same page. In addition to that, we have a closed Facebook page so that no one else can see what's on there, but those who participate can post on there 24/7 and get the support and the help that they need. So if you're working on your food for thought assignment and you find something really helpful, you can share it with everyone. If you're struggling, you can share that with everyone and get feedback. But the point is to have constant access to a coach and to group support. And I've made it incredibly affordable, right? Not everybody can afford the price of private coaching, but everybody can afford this. And if you're ready to change and to end your war with food, I promise there's no reason why you can't participate in this. So let's talk about the investment. Investing in yourself is the very, very most important thing you can do on this. And I promise, talk to my husband. It'll be the best investment you ever make. It will help your relationships, and everybody around you is going to be so grateful for these changes that you're making. It is a 6-month program, 6-month commitment. Now, it can go longer than that. You can stay in longer than that, but 6 months is about the time I want you to give it a shot and see if you can see some actual progress in your life that is measurable. So it's a 6-month program. It's 2 times a week. You can come once a week if you want. The second lesson will be the same lesson as before. Mondays and Thursdays will be the same. There's Facebook support all week long. You'll make supportive friends who completely understand you and relate to you. They are recorded so that you can access them all week. If you have to miss a meeting, you can get on and watch it and see what you missed, or rewatch it if you were there. And the investment for this program for 6 months is normally $997. Okay, $997 for 6 months. If I look at that and see what I was spending just on food, I could have paid for it easily by missing a couple of binges a week. And when we compare that to the price of private coaching. But like I said, I don't want you guys to pay the normal price, not only because you're here and you've made this investment, but now you've actually stuck with me through the craziness of this dumb internet thing. So here's the special that I have created for you. By Monday, okay, now Monday is Labor Day, so you're going to have to remember this. By Monday at midnight, this offer is good for those who attended the webinar and anybody that you invite, okay? You can join for $497, okay? That's $500 off, a little bit more than half, okay? $497 is what you can do this class for 6 months. Anybody you bring can also get in for $497 if it's done by midnight on Monday. Now, in addition to that, anybody that you bring into the program is going to give you 25% more off. Okay, I want to make this affordable for everyone. So you could actually bring 4 people to the program and come in completely free yourself. And if you bring in a 5th person, I will give you $50 for every additional person that you bring. Right? I just want everybody who needs this to get help. And if you're like me, I have lots of friends who struggle with this as well. And we know the people who are struggling. And if you have people that you feel like you're close enough to that you can suggest it, you can use that in a way to help get you in as cheaply as possible, even possibly free. And then one last thing, and here's what I want to throw in for you guys, especially those of you who stuck with me. I feel so crazy bad about this internet thing. If you will sign up by tonight, okay, if this is something you know you want to do anyway, if you'll sign up by midnight tonight, I will just give you a digital copy of my 10 Secrets to Success series. We'll just throw that in because I feel horrible. And this is something that you can use anywhere, anytime. You can download it to your iPhone, your iPad, whatever, and listen to it. It's 10 different CDs that take a different principle of success and discuss them and how you can apply them to your life. It's called the 10 Secrets to Success series that I recorded, and that's something I will just give you for free. So thank you so much for staying with me. You guys are amazing. You know, I'll end by saying this. Well, before I say this, I want to just let you know there's going to be an email in your inbox right now. It should have come at 1 o'clock. That has a link to where this video is going to be uploaded. Give me an extra minute because we are going to go edit out that garbage in between where you're waiting for me. But I will have that uploaded within the hour to that link, and you can access this again. And then you can forward this to your friends if you think that they might want to join. And then also, the more people that join, the more classes I can create. So I want to keep all the classes small. So we want to have enough classes that people can join any class they want and still have an intimate experience. So if we get a lot of people joining, there will be more class options than just Monday and Thursday. So let me just end by saying I really wish that From Food to Faith had existed when I was trying to figure this out. It didn't. And I created it because I want to help other people. But I know that you were created to be happy. That's the reason that you're here. I know that your body is a gift from God. It's not a curse. It's an incredible blessing. And I know that there are alternatives to the extremes of binging and dieting. There is a better life than that, and you can find peace. And I will end with my quote that just meant the world to me when I realized it. It's that, you know, I used to believe that if I could just end my war with food, I would find peace. And now I know that when we find peace, we can end our war with food. Thank you to those of you who stayed on the call throughout the technical glitches. I have never lost the internet before when I was in the middle of a webinar, but we will be sure to discuss that with our local company, won't we? If you are interested in joining my From Food to Faith program, I strongly urge you to go for it. We're going to have a great time together. And you can follow the link that is in the email that was sent to you at 1 o'clock today. It has a link to where this video is going to be uploaded and will allow you to rewatch it for the next several days, and also a link where you can join at the discounted price. Don't forget to use the code PEACE-NOW, all caps, PEACE-NOW. And that is what's going to get you into that special web page. Not everybody can access that. That's just for you guys. And I have some other surprises that I will send you in an email just to try to add more value to you to being so patient with me during these technical glitches today. I look forward to working with you, and have a great day. Bye-bye.